was ein menschlich, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's hard to believe Adar is around the corner with this weather.
What's around the corner?
Adar, Chiddush Adar on Purim.
Oh, yeah.
We're over here.
We have to
in-
prepare the mashke.
we're in the middle of a cold spell over here. Purim is usually,
This is Shabbos Mashiach by Yavamot, which is usually a Purim night.
Sure.
yeah. So aside from the Parshas Shavua and aside from the time of year, we're within 30 days of Purim. It's time to get ready.
So Rebecca,
The snow is melted already, mostly.
Rebecca, you're going to tell us where you argued with Rabbi.
And Dalit, I think, is still when he prepares of Shimon Dalit, so it's easy.
Okay. Zal Purim. So we're gonna look. This is a beautiful mimer. The mimer gives us a new perspective on the time of Golus, and that even though in general the time of Golus is we call it night, as we'll see in the mimer, the time of night and
What?
night and darkness.
Yeah, darkness.
Laila.
So it's not a good time. However,
They go חושך כפול ומכופל.
Yeah.
They say.
yeah. So, however, from one perspective, in one Indian and in a primary Indian, there's actually a big mile in the time of Golus. So let's see. It's a very geschmack. It gives us a whole new geschmack in Purim and a whole new geschmack in our unique avodah in the time of Golus. So here we
Going
go.
to explain why it is the Mila.
It's going to explain that there's a mile in it. In the darkness, there's a mile. But it's going to take a long time. It's a long mimer.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if we have 3 or 4 weeks. We probably only have 3 weeks. So we're going to have to move a little bit. Okay, we'll do our best with that. Balaila Hahu. It says in the Megillah that Balaila Hahu noted Ashnas HaMelech. Yeah, that Achashverosh couldn't fall asleep. The sleep left Achashverosh. Well, maybe correct. Yeah, everybody knows the story over there. That Achashverosh was tossing and turning, and he couldn't fall asleep. He was paranoid, the Medrash says. He was sure that people are scheming against him, and he was wondering why nobody's coming to help him. And they brought the Sefer HaZichronos, the book of memories, or whatever it's called, whatever the proper term for it in English is. And they found over there that Mordechai saved the king. And as that was happening, Haman comes in, and of course, Achashverosh was in no mood for Haman at that moment. And we started seeing the victory of Mordechai over Haman, when Haman had to lead Mordechai through the town. So it says, Balaila Hahu, that's the story of that night. Not that the king couldn't sleep. Or maybe the Frierdiker Rebbe brings down going to get to this pasuk and the Isur b'Minhagei Maharil. It says Minhagei Maharil, which is a Sefer Halacha. When the Balkeda reads the Megillah, when he comes to these words of Balaila Hahu, he should raise his voice. We do it. It's something that we do. I think because Balaila Hahu, that is the main part of the nest. That's when the main nest of Purim happened. Balaila Hahu, or in the Lashon of the Megillah, that's when the force of the nest really started. Frierdiker asks, seemingly the main part of the nest was Esther's pleading to Achashverosh that he should save the Yidden from death, because me and my nation were sold to death. So to the preparations that Esther did before that, go and gather all of the Yidden, and fast for me that I should be successful in my mission. That was the main part of the nest. However, over here, the Maril doesn't say that. It says, the main part of the nest was that the king couldn't sleep, the story of that night. The Maril and the Frierdiker wants to understand why is this a nest? What's the nest in this? So Frierdiker explains as follows. This is what the nest was. And maybe Alzei starts to explain this to be Yalkut. It says in Yalkut Shemeni. I just noticed on Yushmat, I was looking on the pictures of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and there's a series of pictures from when the Frierdiker Rebbe got his citizenship. When the officials came to the Frierdiker Rebbe's office, the Rebbe arranged that there should be color a color video of it. That's where we have the color video of the Frierdiker Rebbe. And there's I don't know what to call it, but a thing of books on the Frierdiker Rebbe's desk. Something to hold the books with a bookend on each side and a row of books on it. And in one of the pictures, or in a few of the pictures, it's turned to the side. I guess somebody turned it to the side so that the desk should be clear, so you could see the Frierdiker Rebbe without it obstructing part of the view. And you see the book that's on the end that was on the Frierdiker Rebbe's desk. There's maybe 10 Sfarim in that little container.
Yeah.
And the book that's on the end is Yalkut Shimoni. Looks like a soft cover of Yalkut Shimoni. So the Frierdiker Rebbe had Yalkut Shimoni. Kolpanim at that time, the Frierdiker Rebbe had Yalkut Shimoni on his desk. The Rebbein Bechlal quoted the Yalkut Shimoni a lot. So it says in the Yalkut Shimoni, it says in Medish that Balaila Hahu Nadar Shnas HaMelech. The Gashmis, what are we talking about? We're talking about the sleep of the king Achashverosh. However, Zeh Malki Shalaylam. The Melech over here in the Megillah is talking about the Eibishter. That the slumber, the sleep that the Eibishter was in, left. He wasn't sleeping anymore. And the Yalkut Shimoni asks on his own explanation, what's the pshat? You're saying that the Eibishter was sleeping, and on this night the Eibishter stopped sleeping. Does the Eibishter sleep? The Eibishter isn't human, chas v'shalom, that he sleeps. Ella, the Yalkut explains, when he sleep, when the Yidden sin against him, so the Eibishter pretends to be sleeping. And when the Yidden do the will of the Eibishter, so on this the pasuk says, that the Eibishter does not sleep, neither does he slumber. Tight it whichever way you want, but the Eibishter does not sleep. The Eibishter is always aware and involved in what happens. Okay, so this is the beginning of the Frierdiker Rebbe's explanation on the pasuk why Balaila Hahu Nadar Shnas HaMelech was the main part of the Nes. Because Shnas HaMelech, the sleep of the king, is actually a reference to the Eibishter, that the Eibishter Kivyachal was in a state of sleep. And on this night, the Eibishter exited his sleep. He woke up. What does the Medrash mean when he says that when the Yidden sin against the Eibishter is like the Eibishter is sleeping, and when he wakes up, and when the Yidden do the Eibishter's will, it's like he wakes up. So he explains, the Frierdiker Rebbe explains, Dinei Adam hu Adam le'elyon. A person is called Adam. It's explained that he's Adam le'elyon. Adam is from the shayrish of the word Adama, which means I'm similar. And who am I similar to? Adam le'elyon. I'm similar to Lamaila. I'm not sure if this is a little bit of a different pirush what he's going to say now on Adam le'elyon. I think usually the pirush of Adam le'elyon is that a person, just like that a person has in him the eser b'chinas of meichin and midas, just like there's eser spheres l'mayla v'chul and many other things. But over here he says Adam le'elyon. He's speaking about not the makeup, not the constitution of the person, but the state of the person. What kind of state is he? Who gefindt er sich? Where is he holding? What is the person's life like? And according to what the person's life is like and where he's holding, it's the same thing l'mayla. He says like this: all of the conditions of the way things are in the upper worlds, they're according to the state of the person down here. So the way we are down here, that's the way things are in the upper worlds. And he quotes the Zohar, that things l'mayla are similar to the way things are down here. And the lashon of the pasuk from Mishlei, that the same way water reflects the image of the person who's looking into the water, so too the heart of a person reflects what the other person is feeling in his heart towards him. And it's explained that this is also talking about the leva adam l'mayla to the leva adam l'mata, that the heart kivyachol of the Eibishter l'mayla, the way it communicates or expresses itself or treats the person down here is the way the person himself feels and acts towards l'mayla. Okay, so the main point over here is that what goes on in the upper worlds is dependent and is actually just a reflection or a reaction, a result of what's going on down here. And therefore, and that's the system. This is a system. That's the way it goes. When the Yidden are in a state of sleep, what's this pshat that Yidden are asleep? That when it comes to the matters of Torah mitzvahs, it's because of the matters of Torah mitzvahs that people are similar to Lamaila and that they affect what happens Lamaila. Him etzlam b'matzav shel shina. So the matters of Torah and mitzvahs are in a condition of sleep. Yeah, and he doesn't explain what it means because everybody can understand what it means on their own. In other words, it's not the way it's supposed to be. Just like when a person is asleep, he's not the way he's supposed to be. He's not in his full faculties, as we'll soon see in the continuation of the Maimer. So when it says that a person is in a situation of sleep in Ruchnis and Yonim, it means that his performance of mitzvahs and his study of Torah is not the way it's supposed to be. So when a person acts like this down here, so he brings about a state of sleep also in the Malka Shalaylam, in the king of the world, in other words, by the Eibishter Kivyachol. Like it says in the Pasuk, Ani Yeshena, that I am asleep. When is this? On when is it said that the Yidden are asleep or that the Eibishter Kivyachol is asleep? This is in the time of Galus. Why? Because of the sleep of the Yidden during the time of Galus. In other words, in the time of Galus, we don't study Torah as it's supposed to be, and we don't perform it just the way it's supposed to be. That's part of the definition of Galus. So we bring about Kivyachol that there should also be a situation of sleep also l'mayla. So what did he explain? He brought from the Yalkut Shemini that Balaila Hahu noted Ashnas HaMelech, that the Eibishter Kivyachol was asleep, and the Yalkut Shemini already explained to us that when is the Eibishter asleep? In a time when the Yidden do Averis, Achman Litzlan. And the Frierdiker Rebbe explained why it works like that. What's the connection? So he says because everything that happens in the Olam Yenim is a reflection and a consequence of what happens down here. So when the Yidden are asleep down here, in other words, they're not learning Torah and they're not doing mitzvahs the way it's supposed to be, so they bring about a situation of sleep l'mayla. And it's important to understand for the next part of the Maimer that what he's saying is that this is a system. This is the way it works. It's not a fluke. It's not as a temporary thing. This is the way the mechanics of the whole system work. When we're awake down here, the Eibishter Kivyachol is awake in the Olam Yenim. When we're asleep down here, the Eibishter Kivyachol is asleep. And this is why the fact that the Eibishter woke up, that is the primary part of the Nes. According to the Seder of Ishtalshalus, the way things are supposed to work, the Eibishter is supposed to be sleeping. It's a time of sleep. It's almost and this, that even though the time of Nod Shnas HaMelech, what the Megillah is referring to, was a time of Galus, and during the Galus itself, a time of sleep, the sleep left the Eibishter woke up Kivyachol. So that is the primary Nes. Yeah, it's almost like a kid who's supposed to be sleeping and his parents let him stay up late. Yeah, so the kid dances and celebrates for the tremendous Nes that his parents let him stay up past bedtime. But in a more emesafen, the time, according to Seder Shtalshalus, according to the way the mechanics of this world and the elements that from which this world came from is supposed to work, is that in a time of Golus is supposed to be a time of sleep.
Time?
Of sleep. Of sleep. It's a time of sleep. It's time, and we'll see in detail further what it means, a time of sleep. But we could understand even simply that a time of sleep is when the Eibishter Kivyachol isn't taking care of us, when the Yidden are not taken care of by the Eibishter. And suddenly over here, even though it was a time of Golus, it was after bedtime, the Eibishter, still the sleep left the Eibishter. The Eibishter woke up. It's a Geshmaka Art 17. We'll just read it quickly. The main point that I want to take out from this Ha'ara is this beginning. What the Rebbe says, that this is a change in the nature of the way things work in the upper worlds. The nature of the way things work in the upper worlds is the way he explained in the inside of the Maimer, in the Pnim of the Maimer, that when during Golus it's a time of sleep, everything is supposed to be asleep. And over here we had a change in the nature of the way the worlds work, the upper worlds work, and that is a greaterness when there's a change of nature down here in the lower worlds. Okay, we'll leave the rest of the Hara as it is. So let's continue. Zeh gam di kaloshin not da shnas hamelech, not da daika, and this is also why the Megillah expresses itself. The words that not da shnas hamelech, that sleep left the king. The lashon not da shnas hamelech, shashina not da mehamelech, that it left the king. Meire, it expresses, it shows the shayaroi shashina tia ba'melech. Really, the king should have been sleeping. It was after bedtime. But nevertheless, even though the king should have been sleeping, he still couldn't sleep. The sleep left him. Just like we say, a person who left his place, that his place is where he's supposed to be. Not at Mimukayim, he left his place because he's not where he's supposed to be.
You're not at base yet.
No, one line before base.
Okay, yeah.
Kizman Hagolus is and this is understood based on the way we explained earlier that the time of Golus is a time of sleep. But a miracle was done. That the sleep left, even though it was supposed to be sleeping. Okay. And, this ice, you can understand it simply, but there's it's an edel understanding, but we'll do our best with it. The Fidiger continues in his mind that explaining what does sleep look like in the upper worlds. We'll be able to understand it by better understanding what does sleep look in a person down here. As the pasuk says, that I can see elikus, I can understand what goes on in the upper worlds, from my own flesh, from the way things work with me. Let's analyze, let's observe what is the difference between a person who's sleeping to a person who's awake. So he says there's no change in the existence of the person. The person exists while he's sleeping, just like he existed before he's sleeping. There's no change. It's the same exact person. Right? When a person goes to sleep, it's not pshat. There's sleeping person and awake person. Two different people. No, it's the same exact person with everything being the same if you're going to talk about the existence of the person. Nothing in his existence was lost. His existence is complete just the way it is when he's awake. During the time of sleep, all of his limbs and sinews are all there in his body. They're all alive just the same. Similarly, the person also has all of the powers, the faculties of his soul, and they're working. So they're there and they're effective. As we see tangibly, that you see when a person dreams, all of the keiches of a person are active. Sai his seichel, sai his midas, and not only that, even his ratzon and his tainuk. Okay, so the fact that the person, when he's sleeping, physically he's there completely, that we can all, we don't need any explanation for that. We know when a person is sleeping, we see he's still there and he's fully alive. You can ask a question from Shulchan Aruch, from the Gemara, that it says that Shina is a certain measure, is a certain amount of death. About Al-Kopanim, for the most part, the person is alive. And you can see the person seems to be completely alive. And he gives an explanation how we can see that even the person's faculties, in other words, when the person is sleeping, it seems like he's not active. You don't see him talking, you don't see him thinking, he doesn't seem to be feeling. So he says, no, he is, just in a different way. When he's up, he's having conscious regular thoughts, and he's having conscious regular feelings, and ratzon and tainuk, and he has a will, and he has things that he takes pleasure in. When he's sleeping, all of the same things happen, but they just happen in a dream. They don't happen, how would you call them, the not a dream? In the regular conscious level, the way it happens. They all happen, but in a different realm, in a different space, in the space of a dream. So everything is still active. The ad, not only that, the kasher hu zeicha, when a person is meritorious, in other words, as it's explained when he harvests very hard on understanding in Torah, so the thoughts that he has during a dream could actually be a true thought, to the extent that things that he was struggling to understand during the day could suddenly become revealed to him when he's asleep. The same mechanism is also true when you get to Tainug and Ratzon. He doesn't give an explanation, but he cites Maimer Chazal, which I don't understand how it explains things, but whatever it is. Also, when a person is asleep, when he dreams, also his tainug and also his ratzon are also active. Even a person who doesn't have true seichel or doesn't have true tainug and true ratzon while he's asleep, nevertheless, that even in a person's dreams, yeshna midas seichel ratzon v'tainug. You have all of these things being active. A person experiences emotions, and a person experiences intellectual thought, and things that he wants and things that he enjoys, also when he's sleeping. Benegel to things that are in existence, and we'll just leave that statement as it is. Mashenkin things that are complete impossibilities. In other words, putting together two opposites, like an elephant that fits in the eye of a needle. That's not possible to be even when the person is sleeping. I'm not sure what the Frierdiker Rebbe, this is all the Rebbe is saying, what the Frierdiker Rebbe is saying. Yeah, no. To explain this,
What does it mean? The
Gemara, the Gemara explains that in a dream a person can see things that are impossible to be in real life. But the Gemara says there's a limit on that. The person can see, for example, that he's flying. The person is flying is not two opposites together. It's just something that's not possible in the physical world. It's not possible in regular reality. A person can see it and it could seem real to him when he's dreaming. However, there's a limit on what a person can see and seem real to him. For example, he can't see things that the thing itself is a contradiction. For example, an elephant, which is massive, and the eye of a needle, which is a teeny space, right? The end where you thread the needle is a teeny space. So a person can't imagine such a thing, that an elephant being an elephant fits in a small space, because this is nimnois. This is a self-contained contradiction. You're saying something big fits in a small space. That's already impossible. Okay, because the nimna aspect of it, it's a contradiction within itself. So
it is just in a dream. It is just in a dream.
Yeah, but you can't. You can't. So he says like this. If everything, when the person is asleep, he has all of the same keiches. He has his seichel, he has his midas. So what's the difference between when a person is awake and when a person is sleeping? In what way is a dream different? So he says like this: the difference between a person who's experiencing his keiches, he's expressing his keiches when he's awake versus when he's asleep is while he's awake, everything is in a proper and good order. And certainly it's impossible that this should be opposites at the same time, and connected to each other, and not even in one continuation. Yeah, so to let's just read a drop more. And when all of the person's matters and faculties and his keiches are in an ordered way, so then you can distinguish the difference. You can differentiate between one keich and another keich, and you can see which keiches are higher than other keiches. Okay, so he makes 2 points over here, and like I said, it's he's not talking about things in the Elam Yisrael, but you have to have a certain amount of ability to describe yourself and what keiches mean, etc., to be able to properly understand this. And I don't have that way of explaining it well. What's he saying? He's saying that a person is made up of many different keiches, so seichel and midas. And he's saying that in seichel itself, there's a seder. The first thought comes before the second thought. Things have to follow in a logical order. And before a person experiences an emotion, comes first a thought, and one thing leads to the next. There's a cause and a consequence. And he's saying that in a time of a dream, there becomes one big chalent out of it. Here he's standing in America, and he's talking, and he's inside a house that is in Israel. And he's talking to somebody who speaks a different language. He's talking to him in English. Everything is all one mixed up thing. And that's the things that he experiences. And also in his thoughts. One thought could somehow lead to another thought when it makes no sense, or it can lead to a contradictory emotion when it makes no sense. Nothing is working in the proper order, and therefore you can't tell what's better, what's worse, what's higher, what's lower. It's all just mixed up together. That's the definition. In other words, things are all out of place. They're all messed up. They don't work. Nothing is put in its right place.
So confused.
It's very confused. It's one state of confusion. It's one state of confusion. Even though things that a person knows are supposed to anchor his reality, things that you know are right and good, or this is the way things work, are supposed to control the way you see things. For example, when a person is up, he understands that he can't walk on water. And therefore, he's never going to have a vision, and he's never going to feel himself that he's walking on water, because this is an impossibility. And therefore, he never experiences such a thing. When a person is sleeping, he could see such a thing. And while he's walking on the water, he can only think, wait a second, this is impossible. And he starts to, whatever happens in his dream, everything is mixed up. So there's no mila to the solid ground, but not by the water, if you want to put it this way. That's what happens when a person is sleeping. When a person is dreaming, there could be a connection and a bringing together of opposite keiches. The highest koyach together with the lowest koyach. I wonder if the Fidik, I didn't look at the Fidik Rebbe's Maimer. I wonder if in the Fidik Rebbe's Maimer he gives more of an explanation so we can actually understand it exactly what he's saying. Until he can have several keiches coming together without any order, without any organization and structure. And certainly you can't recognize and appreciate the mila, the advantage that there is with the upper keiches that relative to the lower keiches. Okay, so that's the situation when a person is asleep. The milas of the things that are higher are not distinguishable from the things that are lower. That seichel is higher than midas is not distinguishable. Okay. So this is the idea of sleep. With this we can understand what sleep in the upper worlds is. The a state of sleep in the upper worlds describes a system where you have things which are higher and you have things which are lower, but you can't tell the difference. The thing that's higher isn't treated better and with more preference lagabi the things that are lower. Everything is treated the same. The high things and the low things in the upper worlds have the same treatment. Okay, and he's going to explain in detail. This must be a spot. What do you have over there in your edition? What's the next word? So maybe it's not
the parallel.
Yeah, it's just it's a strange lashon, but I guess it works in TikTok. Okay.
Yeah. The thing is that when a person is up, is also he has machshavas.
All the time, it's non-stop.
Yeah, it's not stop. But
you could
he's putting the machshavas in reality, in life, in perspective.
Yeah.
So when a person is sleeping, he has machshavas and he has all the machshavas from the day, and it's coming along. It's an old mishmash,
right.
But he doesn't put it
with
together.
No connection to the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
No connection. Yeah. Well said. Yeah. And this is the connection, or of the connections, of the parallels of the inyan of galus and inyan hashena, of galus to sleep. As we mentioned earlier in the Maimon, that the time of galus is the time of sleep. Kisibas hagalus, because what's the cause? What's the reason that there's galus? What creates a situation of galus? Galus kipshute, a situation where Yidden are have a lot of tzaras in this world, and they're not in Eretz Yisrael. They're not in their own land, and they're not able to serve the Eibishter properly. Why is that? Because the Maila of the Yidden is not recognizable, is not seen. The Yisrael, what's supposed to be the way things are supposed to be the Yisrael him banim lamakim, because the Yidden are the Eibishter's children. Like it says, banim atem lavai lekechem, that you are children to the Eibishter. V'al panim, and at the least, avodav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if we're not at the higher level of children to the Eibishter, at least we're the Eibishter's servants. K'maimer, like we say, kabanim im ka'avadim, that the Eibishter, we're turning to the Eibishter, whether as children or as servants. So those are the two options. We're at the higher level, we're the Eibishter's children. At the lower level, we're the Eibishter's servants. A servant of the king is somebody who is treated by the king with preference. In other words, he's taken care of by the king. Shagam Eved Melech hu Melech, even a servant of a king is a king. Leirak Kimelech, the Rebbe emphasizes in the order, not just that he's like a king, he's a king. Children are supposed to be supported by their father. So too, servants are supposed to be supported by their master. And in other words, they should be taken care of and things should be good for them. And the reason why it's not like that, and they were exiled from the table, in other words, from the support and from the surroundings of their father or their master, it's because there's a situation of sleep. You can't recognize, you can't appreciate the Maila of the Yidden, the greatness, the advantage of the Yidden is not felt Lamaila. And from this comes the inin of Golus. Right? So he explains a very simple thing. He says that
it's not felt lemala by who?
In the world, he doesn't specify. He doesn't specify. But everything that what he's saying is that everything that exists in this world receives its energy from Lamaila, from above. And the way things are Lamata are determined by what kind of keches and what kind of decisions are made Lamaila. Okay? So what he's saying is the reason why we have trouble down here is because from above we're not given the things that we need. Why are we not given from above the things that we need? Because when they're looking at things above, they don't see that the Yidden are the Eibishter's children, or at least that the Yidden are the Eibishter's servants. And since that's not felt in the Elam Yenim, so therefore we're not given the Eiris, the Hashpahas, the Keches that we should be given as children of the Eibishter or as servants of the Eibishter. It's not given to us. And that's why we end up in a situation of Golus down here where things aren't good, Rahman al-Islam, for the Yid. Adds up the way the system works.
Yeah.
Now, he said before that what makes it that Lamailot should be like this is because of what we do down here, at least when it comes to Teinan Mitzvah. So he's saying our situation down here of being in Tzaris and being in Golus and being exiled from the Eibishter is because of the way things are Lamaila. But what caused that Lamaila should be like that? It's because of our behavior down here. And if you look at it historically, that's also because of the way it developed. First, the Yidden stopped following the ways of the Eibishter the way they're supposed to be. That brought about the Golus from Eretz Yisrael. So what created the sleep Lamaila, which led to the Golus Lamata, was that the Yidden first abandoned the ways that they're supposed to be acting and learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. Okay, so the Yesod, the fundamental idea that he explains is that Sai Lamata, we're going to see this again for the continuation of the Maimer. Sai down here and Sai in the upper worlds, the idea of sleep is that the regular system, the order, and the way things are supposed to be stops operating according to a way that makes sense, according to a way that fits with the way things are. Yidden are the children of the Eibishter, they should have their keiches. Seichel is higher than Midas, it should come, it should be able to order things. That doesn't happen in a time of sleep. Okay, and the time of Golus is such a time, is a time of sleep. I think we're going to learn the first part of Gimel. The first part of Gimel is really an opener to quite a bit of the continuation of the Maimer. It goes past the end of Gimel. It goes to the end of Dalet. Okay, so we'll learn the first part of Gimel. Umamshich v'hamayim. The Friedrich Rebbe continues, and this is truly subtle things that need good explanation. But let's see. Mamshich b'hamayim. He continues in the Maimer. The zeh shebeis hashina ein nikar ma'alas hakoches al zeh hu bedugmas hakoches k'meshem klulim be'etzem hanefesh. Yeah, a few words that could take years to understand. This that during the time of sleep you can't see the ma'ila, you can't see the advantage of one koach over another koach is similar. This is actually a parallel to the way things are when they are included in the essence of the person's soul. Shasham, which over there in the essence of the person's soul, all of the faculties are there equally. How do we take apart? How do we take apart what he just said? Let's start mapping things out, if you will. He says there's keiches, and he says there's a etzem hanefesh, and he says that there's a place, a space where the keiches are actually included in the etzem hanefesh, and when that happens, all of the keiches are all equal. Okay, so let's start with the easier stuff. Let's start with the keiches. Yeah, we have keiches. What's the we have keiches? We should let's touch it as probably an accurate translation is faculties, but that doesn't really explain anything. What's this faculties? So you say the faculty of thought, the faculty of feeling, the faculty of speech. In other words, these are things that we could do, abilities that we have. Let's use the word abilities. We have the ability to think. A human being could think. A human being can experience emotion. A human being can speak, can take action, can do.
Forget.
A human being can forget.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a lot of abilities, things that a human being can do. These are keiches. Now, where do these things come to? What powers this? What brings these things about? From where does it come from? So it comes from the person's soul. It comes from the person's soul. And in fact, the soul.
You say soul, you say neshama.
A neshama.
Yeah,
we're not going to get into if it's the nefesh or the neshama, whatever, but it comes from the person's soul. It comes from.
You don't call it keiches.
Oh, it's called keiches hanefesh.
Okay.
It comes from the person's soul. And in fact, the soul expresses itself, it acts through these keiches. Okay, so it's an extension of the nefesh. Okay. Now,
nefesh is in the dam, right?
it's in the dam. Yeah, that's a separate discussion.
Okay.
That's not what he's getting at over here.
Okay.
Okay, now let's think about it like this. Is thought and emotion the same thing? Bichlal not. Is thought and action or thought and speech is the same thing? Bichlal not.
The
They're two.
Gives a particular emotion.
Which, by the way, is explained in Chassidus that it's like
emotion
bria.
of happiness, emotion of fear,
Yeah,
emotion of peace, emotion of jealousy, or emotion of.
But the fact that thoughts lead to emotion, like we learned in Lyceum Shakela, is like bria yesh me'ayin. It's like they're two completely different worlds. Let's think about it. What's thought?
Between thoughts and feelings.
And feelings, yeah, they're two different worlds.
Okay.
And they're opposites in almost every way, and perhaps in every way. What's thought? Thought is understanding something. It's pshat understanding something. Yeah, not the way most people think that understanding something is, the way I want to see it. Yeah. Well, what's pshat to understand something is to see it the way I want to see it. No, that's not. That's actually emotion. There's a term for it in psychology. It's called emotional thinking. Okay, emotional thinking in psychology means something else. Al Kapanim, we'll call it over here to the way I want to see things is emotional thinking. What's thought? Thought is discovering what's the truth of something. You investigate. Yeah, this is in truth. This is what science is supposed to be. It's supposed to be the investigation of truth. But mamish, science is a religion of atheism. But in a better time, before it turned into a movement, science was something that was able to lead to serving the Eibishter in a better way. First of all, from the discoveries of science, which that still remains. But second of all, just from the understanding A good understanding in the sciences, what's called the sciences, would help you understand Torah. It's a lower chachma, but it's like a stepping stone, and it's a way to help you understand different concepts in Torah. The reason why we stay away from it like fire is because culturally and in society, science is a movement, and it's a movement of kfirah in the Eibishter, of denying the Eibishter. But what's science supposed? What's chachmas supposed to be? I'm just using the word science because we're familiar with it. In Lashon Kodesh and Torah, it's referred to as chachmas. Wisdom is supposed to be the discovery of truth, and that's still officially what science says. Science is trying to investigate what's the truth of something, because that's what chachma is. So seichel is an objective thing. It's an objective thing. It's not about what I want, and it's not about what I'm going to do with it. It's a cold, disinterested thing. There's no ubechein. A bechein of seichel is already a form of midas shebeseichel. There's no ubechein. There's no conclusion. It's like a professor who's teaching a class, and you come to him and you ask him, "So what's the takeaway?" Say, "What's takeaway? Mali takeaway. You got nothing. You understood nothing. How does takeaway enter the picture? We're discussing something. We're explaining something. We're describing something. What's takeaway? Takeaway comes much later. Takeaway is done by the people who are not in the professor's class, the doers. That's where takeaway exists. So that's seichel. Midas is the complete opposite. Midas cares about the truth of something. The way I feel about something has anything to do. Yeah. A ganiv who feels that this thing should be his. Does truth over here matter? The only thing that matters is that I feel that this thing should belong to me. It's a midah. A midah is not interested in anything. Ego. Does it make any sense? Gaiva, yes. Let's talk about gaiva. Does it make any sense? No. It's a midah. It's what I want. It's the way I want things should be. Is there any universal truth in this that I need to have a stake now? Is it shaykhs to say seichel over here? There's no say. It's a midah. It's a passion. I want something. They're two different worlds. So we say that all of these things, sai the seichel and sai the midah, come from where? Come from one place. They come from the nefesh. But when they're revealed, they're completely different things. And one is absolutely higher than the other. Seichel understanding is higher than midas. And both of them together are higher than thought. And thought is higher than speech, and speech is higher than action. There's a seder. They're different things. You can't mix them. You can't combine them. And one is higher than the other. Even though they all come from the nefesh. But Bamed Vanim Amorim, this is only after they left the nefesh. This is not the way they're kolul in the nefesh. This is not the way they're included, the way they're still within the essence of the soul. When they're within the essence of the soul, then over there he says, Him bahashva. They're all equal. Pshat, they're all equal. What does it mean that when they're in the soul, all this is a tifinian?
Potential.
But you're definitely onto something. But let's explain it the way it's explained in Chassidus. That when they're in the seichel, the fact that they're there in potential is what allows them to be the way the way Chassidus explains it. The fact that once they're in actuality means that they left the soul. Saying that they're there in potential is almost part and parcel of saying that they're not outside of the nefesh. Well, let's not get into that. It's like I said, we could spend a very, very, very long time.
When they're inside still.
When it's almost like saying they're still inside. Over there, was is pshat seichel? When it's within the nefesh, was is pshat seichel? Seichel is pshat understanding? Or no, that's not the pshat seichel. When they're within the nefesh, the pshat is that the nefesh has seichel. It's an expression of the soul. Midas is pshat. Midas is pshat that it has its nature. It has its characteristics. It has its definition and what it is. No, when they're kolul b'hanefesh, the meaning is over there that the nefesh has midas. What's the definition of everything? That it's part of the soul. That the nefesh has seichel, the nefesh has midas, the nefesh has ratzin, the nefesh has timing, etc. So they're all bahashva, they're all one thing. That what? They're an expression of the soul. When they come in a revealed way, what's seichel? Seichel is understanding. What's midas? Midas is passion. V'chulu v'chulu. When they're within the soul, seichel is nicht seichel. Seichel is pshat that the nefesh has seichel. That the nefesh can express itself in seichel. Midas is pshat is that the nefesh has midas. Okay? So therefore, since their true definition when they're included in the soul is just what? That they're something that the nefesh has. So therefore, they're all equal. Because you ask me, what's seichel? Something that the nefesh has. What's midas? Something that the nefesh has. So they're all the same. It's one thing. It's something that the nefesh has. Okay? That's what he means, superficially, to understand. What it means, that all of the keiches are bahashva, they're all equal. So what's our new understanding over here? The inin his almus hakeiches shebeis hashina. This, that the keiches aren't seen to be operating as seichel should and as midas should. They don't operate according to what their characteristics are. What is this when a person is asleep? It is actually what's happening over here is that the keiches leave their expressed state, their characteristics as this is seichel, this is midas. They leave that state of being, and what do they become now? They go back into their source. They go back into the esem and nefesh. Okay. What happens during sleep is that the ability of thought leaves its place of actual thought, and it enters into a higher state, into a place of that it's just part of the nefesh. And same thing for midas, and same thing for everything else. And therefore, they're all equal. Therefore, you can't take them apart, and you can't say these are the characteristics of seichel, these are the characteristics of midas, because over there they exist in a much higher state, like we'll see by in the Maimer. They lose all of that. They're just what? That the nefesh has seichel, the nefesh has midas. Lamata, it's expressed in an eifin of sleep, where things suddenly don't work properly. But what's actually going on is that they went back to their source. Now, just like it is by a person, it's the same thing also in the Elam Yisrael. The Inyan ha'is almus shebizman hagolus shino hu masha hagiluyim misalim lemekeinim v'ad laha'atzmus. The idea of his almus, of where things are suddenly concealed and not seen properly the way they should be seen in the time of golus, which is like sleep, it is that the revelations that come from above, or that are supposed to come from above, down here into this world, don't. They're misalim limikenim. They go back to their source, the adla ha'atzmas, and not only they go back to their source in the upper worlds, they go all the way back into atzmas. All of the revelations are pulled back into atzmas, and they don't express themselves down here into this world. Now, to understand this in the Nimshal, we would have to start explaining. You can't explain what atzmas is, but you could at least try to explain what giluyim are, and what does it mean? What it means that they're mis'ala back, that they're no longer giluyim. Yeah, if we're going to talk about trying to explain atzmas, they say, I think there was a little legendary shtibel, a little shul in Tel Aviv. This is it was yet from, you probably know about it more than I do. It's yet from before. It was from before the time it was from before the times of the state yet, or shortly before. So there was a Lubavitcher shul in Tel Aviv. And over there was Eliezer Karasik. I think Eliezer Karasik was there. There was Meishka Garari. There was Zalman Moshe Hayitzchaki came there later. Yeah, it's the Rebbe's brother, Rabbi Saul Aryeh Leib, used to go over there and learn Chassidus with Nachum Goldschmidt and Fabring with the Elam. In Tel Aviv.
What's the source to that story?
What's
the Dolphin was putting it?
That story basically, but a few times you hear about Nachum Goldschmidt Fabringing with
He was
Rabbi Saul Aryeh Leib.
close to the family.
He was a good friend with Goldschmidt. But to say that they come in shul.
Ich weiß nicht.
gelebt in Tel Aviv?
Ich bin dort nicht gewesen.
No, das ist doch nicht scheiße.
Ich weiß nicht. Das weiß ich nicht.
Weiter.
Aber Al Kolpanim, the Nakud is as a. So there was the shul over there. There's very, very fascinating letters from the Frierdiker Rebbe. Apparently, when Zalman Moshe Yitzchaki came there, you have to understand the character of Zalman Moshe Yitzchaki, but he was a rebel. Yeah, he broke all the rules. He was the Mashpia's Mashpia. He was the Rebbe Futterfass's Mashpia. When he verbring, the Mr. Nemanov used to come and listen to the verbringen. So and if you understand what the Mendel Futterfass is and what the Mr. Nemanov is, you understand what Zalman Moshe was. But he was very vulgar. He spoke like a brute. He spoke in a very grubby way. He said that I speak in a way that my Nefesh Mams can understand. He was very rough on the outside. It's like he was a sheikh. By Chassidim, a sheikh had to be the Yiddish Imam on the highest level. When he passed away, when he passed away, it wasn't Chabad. He was born, I don't know what, but not a Lubavitcher, and he became a chassid. So they say that they asked his wife, what difference do you see in your husband from before he was a chassid to after he was a chassid? She says, I don't know, but before he was a chassid, he used to learn from big svarim, and after he's a chassid, he learns from small svarim. What she meant to say is, the Gemara is pashat big, the Shulchan Aruch is big. Yes. The Sifrei Hasidus were printed until these editions, they were printed small. That's we're spending too much time on this. The point is, when he came over there to Tel Aviv, he rubbed the existing Chassidim there in the wrong way. They couldn't stand his style. The Frierdiker Rebbe had to write one letter that they shouldn't scream at him or that they shouldn't complain about him, and apparently that didn't work. Even the Frierdiker Rebbe writing them a letter, the Frierdiker Rebbe had to write a second letter. These are all printed letters. Well, they referred to him as Zatzal. They in a letter of Nichum Avim that they ever sent to his family. They ever called him Zalman Moshe Zatzal. Okay. Yeah. He was a special man. So I think it was him. He came over to Meshka Gar. Meshka Gar was a big maskil. He was Rabbi Yale's teacher. Meshka Gar. He came over to Meshka Gar, the Zalman Moshe. He tells him, what's his atzmus? What's atzmus? So Meshka says, what's atzmus? How are you going to say what atzmus is? So he eggs him on. He says, no, Mr. Geisha maskil. You can't. What? Epes of word. So he says, Atzmus is, and Zalman Moshe slaps him in the face. You said Atzmus is. You say Atzmus is something. Even just saying that it's something, Atzmus is, you're off. How can you? How can you say such a thing? Anyways, Al Kopanim, so we don't know what Atzmus is. We can't know what Atzmus is. What's the end of the Giluim that come from Atzmus? We could know if we spent the time on it. If you're giving it a definition, you're saying it's the deepest.
Just if you don't mind that one word, I just saw it.
Yeah.
Now, usually when you erase something on paper, you're not allowed to erase the Ebershtel's name.
Of course.
You wrote by mistake. Also, the meaning is you don't erase a person's name. I saw that Rebbe was Magia Minor, and it said the word Atzmus Sumuhus. The Rebbe did not erase it. He circled it down and took it out.
Really?
Very interesting.
So this next Yad.
Yeah, twice in the same paragraph. The Rebbe took it out, but not erasing it. Absolutely, the Rebbe started the Rebbe.
Okay. Well, the Alter Rebbe couldn't say Atzilus. What is Zakman Azeh? Okay, so in the time of Golus, all of the revelations go all the way back into Atzmus, whatever that means. But they're definitely the Giluim, the revelations, aren't here the way they're supposed to be. Okay, do a Maimer Azer on Pasuk Nenu. Don't the Maimer Azer on the Pasuk Nenu. Not sure what this Pasuk is talking about, but I'll upon him this Pasuk, the Kutchabricha, Salik Leila, that the Eibishter goes up, Lamaila, Sha'ala, Limikema. He went back to his place, Cheder Lifni Mecheder, chamber within a chamber, back to his private space. He's not revealed to anything outside of himself. I knew the Inin Hais, Almas Shibizmana goes, Sarak Lagabi Lamata. Oh, he dropped a bomb. Do you realize what just happened over here? If you understand it this way, so this that we say that in time of Golus, the things are concealed, it's only from our perspective that things are concealed. It's only from our perspective that things are in a worse state than they were before. Shebizman HaGolus, he explains, down here, from our perspective, the Eir left us, and it doesn't shine here. And that's why we're in a situation of Golus. But what happens to the Eir? To the Eir, it's a completely different experience. The Eir is now in a much better place. Instead of the Eir being lowered down here into this world, the Eir went back to its source, where it's much better, where it's much closer to the Eibishter. If this is the mechanism, then when a person is asleep, when a person is awake, his seichel and his midas leave his soul, and now they become each thing onto its own with its distinct identity. I am seichel and I think. I am midas and I experience emotions. And when the person sleeps, what happens? His seichel and his midas go back to their source. So from the perspective of the conscious person, he's not operating the way he should. He's dreaming. But from the perspective of the seichel is in existence now at a much higher plane, in a much higher place and way of being. He's much higher, like he's going to explain weiter in the Maimer. So too with the Eris. The Eris of the Eibishter, he explains it's the same mechanism of awaken versus sleep. When the person is, when it's a time of not galus, when it's a regular time, so the Eris are down here, and we see them and they have their effect. The Yidden get what they need. There's no tzadus Baruch Hashem for the Yidden. But the Eid is what? The Eid is far away from its source. In the time of Galus, to the Eid, he's actually experiencing a much better existence. Not as something that left its true place, but something that's within its true place, that's within his market. Just like when a person is sleeping, this that his seichel left him, it's only that it left his body. That the light of the soul leaves the body. But from the soul's perspective, it's the complete opposite. It's only when he's asleep. The soul goes back to its source, goes back up, and it rejuvenates, it refreshes. It becomes stronger, it gets back its life. So you see this literally, a person goes to sleep. What's the state of his nefesh? His nefesh, the way it's in his body, the nefesh that gives him energy, the nefesh that gives him clear thought and proper emotions. He's tired, he's exhausted when he goes to sleep. His nefesh is exhausted. He wakes up, his nefesh is rejuvenated. So you can see clearly that to the nefesh, what was this experience of sleeping? It wasn't an experience of losing something. The opposite is true. Adrab. It was an experience of gaining. It was an experience of going to a better place, of being in touch with its true self. Adds up? We see it. We see it. This is the way it is. So now we made a key distinction. We've arrived at a new discovery over here. Yeah? Then when we say that sleep is a bad thing, my mind isn't working, my emotions aren't working. When we say that Golus is a bad thing, the light that's supposed to be in this world is not here. So he made a distinction over here. He made a fine point. That's from your perspective. That's from the perspective of the body that his mind isn't working, that things are in a worse off state. It's from the perspective of the world that there's a situation of Golus. But how about from the perspective of the soul? Or from the perspective of the light? It's a complete opposite story. From the perspective of the soul, now the soul is going back to its source, and that's why it comes back refreshed. From the perspective of the light, now instead of the light being down here in lowly realms, the light is back up in a much higher place, in a much higher type of existence. And that's the point that we're going to need to remember and better understand as we progress through the Maimed. That Shina, sleep, Laila, time of sleep, is bad. It's not good, but it depends from whose perspective. From our perspective down here, it's not good, but actually from the perspective of Laila, it is good. And therefore, there's going to be a very big difference to us. Now that we can look at it this way, it's going to matter a lot to us, even the way we are down here. As we'll see, Mitzvah Hashem, in the continuation of the Maimed.
Okay.